Well, hello everyone. You here and welcome back right here. Talk about for Salvage Joke 2 and basically talk about for salvage vehicles and talk about the just right down the street. And you have right here is like a gentleman right here, like knowing about like want to tear up an old car, and you have right here like the example right here of a police officer with on with the police car, and it this right here this right here over here would be example right here if I say like a highway at about right here. So if I would draw maybe like a little example right here of like a little highway about right here along with some trucks, and so like Warren Tour, if anybody Warren's Tour, yeah, just add some color right there, and add like there was an example right here of a highway right here. But you see right here, I talk about say for like salvage joke, and if anybody warns his tour, yeah, a salvage joke, and like yeah, about how old is too old, just to be driving, that old clunker. Like if somebody says like yeah, maybe if it's a classic or if it's just something that they just that they just want to drive for any particular reason. But you see right here is like known by a gentleman that I know I want to tear up an old car, like such as I want that car. But other than that, like you taught right here, is that you have right here's the example right here of a policeman, or if it could be a police, lady is like a, for like say knowing about with the police officer, and they want to tour it, yeah. If anybody like wants to tour it, yeah. If you all know about the familiar about that, just right down the street, like an oh well. That car, like that car right there. Like, well, it's not down the street, and right now. I'm like, it's like for if last time I seen it, it was at the store, like, and all of a sudden it's like maybe about 15 minutes later, like, is that the car you're talking about? Yeah, and then after 15 minutes, is that the car? Like about two times in a row, hasn't it? Past 3 or 4 hours, like, and I wonder about, like knowing about, yeah, and find out. I'm like, really driving an old car, and you're like warrant tour that drive it long enough, and then bike with anybody that they may warrant tour, gonna be driving a car, and it's like you're like warrant tour, you drive it long enough, and if anybody warns us toward drive an old car, huh? You're gonna be driving an old car, and you're like warrant tour, how about how old is too old? Really? I'm like, are you just gonna start driving, keep driving it until the engine parts just start falling out? But let's just say that if anybody probably says is that yeah, that if you were to be pulled over by maybe a city or state policeman, and you're like thinking, hello, how may I help you, officer? Like, are you aware about how slow you're going? Oh, yeah, I know. It's like I just polished the license plate though, but then as well as I put some new air in the tires. Like, and I'm not talking about the tires. I'm talking about the entire car, make and model itself. This car right here. I can, yeah, well, at least it has rear view mirrors. I'm not talking about the rear view mirrors. I'm talking about the whole entire car itself, the way it drives, and then the way I like knowing about whenever you're going to be on your car, on your land, like being in the car or on your car. Now, are you knowing about is like, yeah, for the lane that you're driving on? I can, oh, well, I could probably say that, maybe I could say, I'm like, if I could maybe, be driving somewhere where maybe used to be a cornfield, and like knowing about, I'm like, if there's a parking lot there now, like, and I want to let you know something, okay? That you need to do something about this vehicle, because it's kind of like, well, listen, officer, I tell you one thing about if there's like a particular rule, like to a law to where that any vehicle that you do drive, as long as it's legal, huh? But here, like, it's like, sir, I'll have to say that the car, that this car right here, that it's in a condition to where like luckily if you even passed the inspection, but on your hand that it's coming to time to where with the car itself, it's getting pretty bad. Like, well, listen, officer, all right, like if anybody like warrant to where, yeah, any you take it for going slow or anything like that, or anything about what you call it, like for the car itself, anybody like warrant to her, it's like there's something about the just right down the street. Oh, there's something about the just right down the street. Yeah, I'm talking about the and I tell you one thing that that cop, there was a cop that was that was patrolling the area, and he was saying about us to her that that I talk about the just right down the street. I can that was just down the street, but then now it's on the highway. Like, well, I had to tell him that he had to do something about the so I tell you one thing: if there's something about the that we don't like, or if there's something about, listen, okay, I warned to her, your officer, that I want to know, I'm like, can I have someone to be able to buy the car so I can tear it up myself? It's like knowing about, maybe you got another neighbor that's getting tired of hearing the car, and then maybe a police officer is going to maybe say something about it. And we're like warned to her that if you ever heard that before, to where besides that maybe a howling dog or anything like that, or maybe a barbecue grill. I'm like, well, what about a barbecue grill? Well, the barbecue grill, like if we were to see any type of what you call electronic hands coming, or if it's anything hands like an if it's anything about what you call, maybe the charcoal got overheated. The charcoal got overheated and made a loud whistle. And then what am I going to do about it? If it makes a loud, then I tell you what, then you just out of here. But on your hand, I like talk about. But on your hand, I talk about there's something about. That's okay. But then on your hand, if you talk about, then that's annoying. But on your hand, anybody like wanted to wear anything that what you call makes noises, such as or if it goes or I turn in the ignition, it goes anybody that may want to work. Do you have to listen to that all night? Well, unfortunately, anybody who lives here that does, and then anybody who works there, up the block would more likely have to listen to it. But you're like wanting to, well, what does the policeman say? What did the policeman say? Well, there's something about the that he says it's not really his ordeal, but then there's something about the that he's going to do something about. But on your hand, you have right here talk about for salvage, but knowing about you hop into one of these cars and knowing about the welded doors shut on both sides and like warrant to her anybody that may warrant even a police officer maybe warrant to her that there's something about the car. There's something about the car that needs to come to the attention of maybe the highway per se patrol, or if it's going to be maybe the state or the county or something like that. But if anybody warns us to her, really, about, maybe not every police car is going to be what you call a really fair good condition, really, but still, that they more likely say is to her that, if you're going to be driving a car and if you love that car so much, if you love the so much, then, I want to know is like, that, you'll be able to take it to the salvage yard and keep it in the salvage yard and work out there at the salvage yard as long as you're not causing any problem. But I'm like, well, anybody like saying, well, what did the neighbor say? Well, the neighbor pretty much said that his salvage yard is on wheels. Like, on what? Yeah, exactly. That what you call this dumpster, that's what you call it's on wheels, and they're like, yeah, well, if you got a problem with it, then you can jump in the back. Well, I'm afraid to say, sir, is to where the back is no longer there. Okay, the back has come to pieces. All right, you ought to know about the car. The car is pretty much all in pieces right here. I have right here is the only thing that's holding it together is that that's what you call is the question right here. What is holding your car together? And you're like, well, I say I got the special wax, of course, and then as well as the polish, and well, I have to say, sir, please take it off the street, whatever. And then after about maybe a year later, we still hear that just talk about there's something about the just right down the street, and there's something about the just right down the street. And warrant for would you turn that alarm clock off? Oh no, I'm afraid that's not the alarm clock. The alarm clock sounds more like beep 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 beep. But then that if you're hearing a loud it's more likely the car. It's more likely that just right down the street, the what? The just right down the street. Oh, the just right down the street. Oh, okay. Well, I thought that was the water heater. The water heater that don't sound like it sounds like well, on anybody that may want to work, really, does the water heater make any noise at all? Anybody that may warrant to work that really about for any car necessarily, any car that's going to make any kind of loud noise and you're like warrant to work that really I'm like the type of car that more likely you better say that yeah that if you're going to be say maybe a a policeman or if it's going to be anybody that's going to maybe say something about it necessarily. And you're like warrant tour if anybody warrants tour really are you about how where about how fast you're going. Yeah, well, like it takes me about an hour and 30 minutes to drive drive to the store, drive around town and back. Like, well, I'll tell you one thing, okay, about this car of yours. Okay, if it's not going to get any faster compared to one of those high-speed, it's like SRVs or anything like that, then why do you even have it? I can, hey, listen, I got a license plate on it, don't I? Like, yeah, but that license plate right there, of course, and like say it's not held together like the rest of the vehicle, all it's like with rubber bands or how you want to pronounce it. But on your hand that you have right here. Let's talk about say about that just right down the street. Oh, okay, yeah, that just right down the street. Yeah, you turn in the ignition and you hear for it go, and you know that more likely that there's something going on with it. Oh no, I'm like you knowing about if it's choking or not. You knowing about if it's choking, and you have right here's the bad exhaust, right? You got some exhaust, you got some exhaust coming out of the car right here, right? What does that more likely necessarily mean? Oh well, yeah. It don't mean that the engine's gargling, does it? Like an yeah, whatever you want to pronounce it by, but to let you know, it is like the exhaust has to come out somewhere, right? Like an yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing about if the exhaust is not coming out, then maybe the engine's not running. That's right. It's like it's rolling. The engine's rolling, ain't it? Well, between running and rolling, it sounds like when it's running, but it sounds like when it's rolling. So anybody like wanting to, or yeah, between a rocking and a rolling, or if it's rumbling and a running, or whichever you call it, like it's like you got to do something about the okay, because otherwise I'll be back you to see the and I'll be one to talk to anyone about it, like knowing about there's something about the that I don't like because what you call knowing about the police officer. I'm the patrolman. I patrol this highway and if I like wanting to, we're making sure everybody's safe also, and we don't need no here the just going down the street, okay? If it's not anything related to any type of farm machinery or anything like that, why do you need to drive the okay? Well, I tell you one thing, that about I have a special bumper sticker on the back that I've been keeping for the past 15 years, and as well as I keep the car clean and waxed. But it's like, yeah, well, I keep track of how many times it goes up and down the street too, and plus you around the curve or the corners, and as well as like knowing about how many stop signs, as well as street signs and traffic lights are up around the county. So I want to let you know, it's like, yeah, that you may drive this car, if you want to drive the, down the street or up the street, you ought to know about how many times, knowing about, for how many traffic stops or anything like that. And that's another thing, officer, is I'm wondering to where if I can ask you a question, why is there a traffic light up here on this corner and on facing the east and facing the west? Well, to make sure the traffic flows fine. Oh really? It's not looking for the just going east or west, or it's not looking for the going south. There is no on the streets, okay? So please do something about the car. Like I say, yeah, well the neighbor told me the same thing. I want that car. I want that car. I want that car so I could tear it up. Well, you hear that car, the just going down the street. We're not talking about the weather either. We're talking about the just right down the street. Oh, yeah, okay, you're talking about the just going down the street, huh? What sounds more annoying than one of those old clunkers, huh? One of those old salvage vehicles. And at the time, you're like saying, for really thunder. I know it about right here. Anybody that may want to. What's the annoying sounds that comes from the rolling thunder, such as the rolling thunder, on your hand too, the rolling thunder, but on your hand, to talk about right here is knowing about that you can continue driving the car until the engine's parts start falling down from the bottom. You're like, there's something about the that I don't like. Oh, okay, but yeah, there's something about the that I just really feel like saying. Turning the ignition and put that car in reverse. Put the in reverse so that way I can go ahead and flatten the trunk in so I can think about it. It's like, I'm going to take this thing to the demolition derby. I'm going to have fun with this piece of junk. I'm going to have fun with this piece of junk. And knowing about right here, talk about for a salvage joke, and knowing about, you're saying, I want that car. Like, why don't you just park that darn thing and leave it in park? Oh, okay, well, it's in park now. What do you mean that thing? I'm talking about just right up the street. Yeah, it's like knowing between up the street and down the street. And you're like, wondering, there's something about the that I'm going to do something about. I can, well, yeah, well, what are you going to do about it? I say knowing about what the police officers, and like you said, is knowing about, you got to do something about the because I'm going to like warrant to, or I'll be keeping track of how many times the goes up and down the street. But other than that, I talk about right here, so let's say for Salvage Joke, and thanks for watching, Manny25, and have a great day. Yeah, like knowing about Manny25 also mentions about I talk about right here of like for good gas mileage. Anybody that may wonder, there's something about the that I can like, well, I'll tell you one thing about, yeah, it's the car that gets good gas mileage. But you're like warrantor that really, if the car gets good gas mileage, then why does it sound like bah, 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 whenever it's on the highway? Like, oh well, I'll tell you one thing, okay? There's something about the car that I just really think that I just gotta continue driving it for. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, okay? Yeah, it does as to where that about how many passengers can ride into it also, and like what about the policeman will more likely say is to where checking out the vehicle also. I know yeah the rear view mirrors, but I tell you one thing about yeah, well the car if it gets good gas mileage, but you want to know about if it's only going about maybe 25 mile an hour on the highway here. You all know about safety wise also. Like, oh, okay, yeah, the safety wise. Well, the safety wise and knowing about right here is to where that yeah that I on the other hand is to where that I do have my seatbelt on. Like, listen, okay, even if you have your seatbelt on, okay, like whenever people are driving, they continue to warn to where that not only about the but on your hand, and oh yeah, well listen, the car gets good gas mileage, and on your hand too, I got the right license plates, don't I? Like, and you got the right license plates, but on your hand you also think about the safety here and knowing about the condition of the vehicle. I can well, I tell you one thing. I got a neighbor who wants to buy it from me, but on your hand, I told him that I wasn't gonna. It's like not to say no offer, whichever. But like warrantor, I'm like really that if anybody like warrantor, what is the policeman going to say necessarily about old cars on the street? Like warrantor, really about if it goes like bah, 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 you turn in the key ignition and it goes. You're like one tour that really that it's like so far as rolling thunder. But on your hand, they talk about right here for good gas mileage. But it's like knowing about the car that gets good gas mileage. And I was like, say, there's something about the just right down the street. Other than that, I talk about